Okay, this is really the first test we did with the P90 magazine. Before I was shooting with the P90 magazine and I was testing it just at home with some different paint. It was looking really promising because the paint was getting out really easy. But when we get there, I used a different type of paint. It was a little bit bigger, also very old, so a little bit oval, misformed. That did not help, but at the same time it should fit that worst case scenario paint as well. But you can notice that sometimes the spring is hanging up in the magazine. And that's something we figured out when we are test trying. Like, oh, you need to shake it a little bit, tap it, and then the spring slides on and press the paint inside. Also keep in mind that we are pointing the P90 downwards. That's just to not make it so much of a mess down there. But that's not the optimal position for the P90. The P90 likes to be vertical or like pointed up, like you do a lot with paintball. But at the same time, it should work pointing down. So it's also really good that we test it this way and not only the ideal situation. But I think if we would have pointed like vertical or up, it would fit a lot better than we saw today. But at the same time, this magazine was just like a few hours old. It was just fresh on the printer. Did not have a lot of time. We arranged this day to do this. Really rushed the job, you could say. So I had not time to fine tune the spring head, things like that. But the idea of using the two D-Max springs and attach it with some shrink wrap is really a good idea. It works really well. Still, the mechanism to lock the spring up is still a work in progress, but also that part is looking really promising, but still needs some little fine tuning. I will do this in a couple of weeks that follow now. The ball detent works really well with this Gen magazine. Did work also before, but with this one it's really nice and solid. I like that a lot. I don't touch that part, that's already kind of done. The magazine itself, I think the tunnels inside are a little bit too narrow still. And there was something strange that I kinda did with the magazines in between. And that's also what kinda holds the project a little bit up. I was thinking that the first magazine was way too big inside. So I made it more narrow, and that was causing a lot of problems. And for some reason I was convinced that would not be the problem. So it was, yeah, really, in hindsight it's really odd. But it was also because I was still messing around with the spring, things like that. But now it starts to really shape up the project, so I hope to finish it really soon. But yeah, you could see it was not feeling totally amazing, but we can. I'm sure that I can figure that one out. Also, you can see a video part that we tried to shoot with the dye magazines underneath with the according adapters to install, so it will you can convert it back to like bottom feeding. That one worked really well. The magazine of course is proven, so that works. And the plug you put inside on the top, yeah, that holds really well. It's easy to install. Especially the bigger one, that is just one big plug you put on the top. The one that's smaller, it's not really shown here on the video, but that's a little bit more finicky, but it's a little bit harder to get in, more steps to install. But what that one lets you do is install, unplug, and then install a magazine on top of it. So if you, in case you find the look nicer, see a magazine on the top, so it's not like you're shooting an empty P90, then that's an option. But if you want to change more rapidly, it shows like the big plug is the way to go. Because you can really grab that one really easy. It's a really confirming click you hear, like, oh okay, it's locked in place, move on to the next step, and that's changing the dummy mag for the real mag. And you can continue. Yeah, the other one is a little bit more like you need good lighting to see like, oh, it's installed correctly, then install the magazine on top. It's not too bad. It's got some aligning aid in there, so it will align correctly. I can only install it in the correct way. But at the same time, on the stress, I can imagine that you don't want to do that. So it's maybe more something that you do off field and say like, okay, I'm gonna shoot like first strikes or only with the bottom magazines for some reason, and I just want to have the dummy mag on top. But yeah, that's really kind of an update about it. At first I did not really want to show it, but at the same time I think, yeah, you can see a little bit the progress of it. And yeah, not everything is right at yeah at the first try, and this is a big project, so definitely needs some revisions sometimes. Also, maybe I don't know if I mentioned that in the videos already. The bulb trigger is already like considered finished. It works really well. Um, Also, I mentioned it before in another video, but the way this setup is used with the bullpup conversion, the remote line, it works really well with it. It's not that it's poking in your arm or in your body if you shoulder it. It goes nice underneath your arm. And yeah, you don't have any problems with it. I can only imagine when you use like something like a slide check that it maybe will be an hindrance. Maybe you will accidentally slide it on and off. So something like a push connect or like the regular remote line without a slide check will probably be recommended with it. But at the same time, if you have the slide check with on and off, I can imagine that you like that one because you can turn it on and off. Maybe use some duct tape around the slide check that you can ensure like, okay, it stays on when I'm playing on the field, you know. Or maybe make a clip so yeah, that it cannot accidentally slide backwards. There's probably something to work around that problem if that is a problem.